majority of your armaments, besides the web weaver, necessarily, were left back in your room out of your immediate possession.
Yep.
Which can be either very good or very bad in this situation.
Ray, I'm going to cut you off really quick here because I made a grave mistake.
Proceed.
I did not start the recording until just now. So, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give a very quick recap, and then I'm going to tell everyone what they missed. All right. Here's the recap, everyone. This is what happened last episode. I had a very intimate moment with Ion. Very spiritual, very cool, not planned. An interesting moment with my father that gave me existential ponderance that I really had not come with a resolution with, in addition to finding his necklace. Oh, I guess I would have the necklace when I went there, now that I think about it. So I would have the necklace on that I found, right? Anyways, I found the goat necklace and some maps regarding the Illusory Desert, among other things. Then I went back, met a cool goblin named Snake. I don't think he was a goblin, actually. Was he a goblin?
He's a goblin.
He's a goblin. Who gets beaten by his wife. And then ultimately, we end the episode with the encounter with Apep Apophis, how that conversation kind of went, and it didn't go well, and mistakes were made, supposedly. So now we're just reclarifying what I brought with me to the discussion with Apophis, Apep, and I have concretely said that I did not really bring armor because I didn't think it was necessary. It was a existential spiritual experience. In addition to the fact that I didn't bring my shield, not too many personal items. I did bring religious items for ritualistic purposes because I understood that this was a sort of metaphysical experience. In addition to the fact that I brought with me the goat necklace and wore basically just pants and a tunic, thinking that it was just going to be an exchange of words, a quick conversation, all that type of stuff. And that was not the case because, of course, it wasn't. And I was an idiot and I made a mistake. So that is where we are at right now. That's what we're dealing with. Now we are in what we would call the present. And yeah. All right, Ray, continue.
The last thing you remembered was pain. Sheer agonizing curtain of pain filling your veins with a venom that is impossible to find in any other place than in the terrible, dire mouth of Apophis. Isaiah, you cannot see. You feel very little than the agony. Your perception and reality has completely overtaken you to a place that you don't recognize. You remember feeling blows and strikes from behind you and everything going dark. And you have to roll me a death saving throw at this moment in time.
Okay. Ray, could not be a nat 1, could it? That just could not be my luck, right?
There's no possible way.
All right. All right. Fingers crossed, no jinxing. We tried the hand of God,
Oh,
and he reminded us that he is still here. It is a 3.
oh. The amount of time that goes by is unknown, but the pain leaves you. You feel like it's gone on so long that there's nothing left to burn in your veins. There's no higher level that you could possibly reach.
Level 13.
Level 13. There's no healing happening, just agony, but death does not take you at this moment in time. You feel as though your time is limited. Isaiah, you wake up and you are as you were before. But most things are dark except for a hue in the distance. It's a rocky, plateau-like climate, an area, and in the distance you see a very potent orange glow. The ground is a dark red, almost as if it's been dyed. And you find yourself here,
Nice pun.
Kopesh at your side. No armor, no shield, just yourself.
What does the sky look like?
You look up and you see what looks like up above some type of clouds, glowing clouds, almost like a mist. But everything is orange, as that is the only exhibited light in the area.
Can I make a nature or perception check regarding local flora and fauna that I could make out?
You may make a perception check.
Ray. It is a 3.
You see no local flora
I lied.
or
It's a 4.
fauna.
It's a 4.
It's a 4? Okay. You see all of it.
all
Actually,
right, all
I
right.
lied completely. You don't see anything. You don't see anything that seems to be alive necessarily. You do get the feeling that wherever you are, many have tread before, as you see a number of markings that dictate travel and movement of many different types of footwear and feet at that matter.
If that's the case, then I will pick up my Kopesh and do what I did at the beginning of my journey, what I did at the mid journey, and keep the trend going at the start of this end journey, which is walk in a straight direction, in the direction of all the footsteps.
Number of the footsteps start walking towards the glow that you see in the distance. And Isaiah, you start your little journey. Time doesn't drag on too long until you see what looks to be a lake of the acid of Apep, or Apophis, just glowing, ever so present. The most upsetting part is you see what looks to be figures waiting far off into the distance.
What do I know about the Lake of Apophis?
You, after seeing the lake and the venom itself back, recollect the immediacy of the last encounter you had. Apophis had violated the circle. He had touched your mind, maybe your soul and body itself, and you have no recollection. There are no. The information on Apophis or APEP is very limited as it is. There is no understanding of a lake associated with him. You see what looks to be his venom, his acidic primordial venom, just kind of laying at a low tide here. Very strangely. The biggest fear that comes to your mind immediately is that it looks as though that this venom is going to rise again and take up and once again dye the very rock that you stand upon.
Hmm. Uh, I'm on a rocky plateau. The lake in front of me. How large are we talking?
You're at the coast of it right now. There's a decent enough drop. There's about a 4 foot drop until you would actually get into the liquid itself. And as far as you can tell, it stretches so far off into the distance that you can't necessarily see the end, as if you were staring across a certain great lake in our local area. You feel like you can see something on the other side, but it's so dark and distant that you can't really tell otherwise. The only thing that gives you the idea of there's a possible ending to it is the individuals that are slowly getting more and more distant as time goes on. You see a number of footsteps either go off the shore and into the lake, or they start walking alongside the shore itself, seemingly unable to take the next step.
I will take my Kopesh and dip the tip of it into the lake.
Okay. You dip the Kopesh into the lake. The Kopesh starts to glow as the acid tries to eat away at it, failing to do so. It glows a very eerie silver color.
Is So I get the impression that if I were to leave it submerged, it would not bode well.
You feel. Actually, roll me an Arcana check.
Big roll. Big roll. Ooh, yeah. We're back, baby. 21.
The effect that this venom has upon the Kopesh does not seem immediate by any means. The essence that it is made out of is not that of the mortal plane by any means at all. However, the metal seems to slowly change. Not necessarily become empowered, but it is being altered as time goes on. You oftentimes would see in a living lake itself, you know, flora and fauna, but the liquid itself is so bright and viscous, you can't really make out any type of vegetation that might be growing or any type of creature that might be able to survive a journey in this fluid, and anything that would not be anything that you necessarily would want to come across.
Um, so, despite the lake being venom, It doesn't appear to be corrosive to the blade itself.
Not the blade, not corrosive,
Okay.
maybe altering.
I would like to reach my hand and touch the surface of the lake and see what happens. And just to clarify, you said that I technically rested or no?
You were fully rested, yes.
Okay.
So you may take a full rest.
I will. Yeah, I will do just that. I will graze my palm across the top of the lake.
As you graze your palm across the lake, I would like you to roll me an intelligence saving throw.
A 17.
17 is very high. That is good. Isaiah, once the venom makes contact with your body once again, you feel it still ever present in your veins. It doesn't burn at the same quality. It, however, does hurt immensely. And the moment you do that, for a split second in time, you see the very pained look on Amun's face as your hand is pressed deep into his rib cage and your thumb is pressed through the center of his sternum, cracking it, and you grip him by the very sternum itself as he's screaming at you. Stop. And you feel nothing but anger and hatred for an individual who is not the man in front of you. And this anger is not yours to begin with. It feels oh so similar to the beginning of the very campaign we started many years ago, when you had this certain level of indifference towards the world itself, and everything felt like an illusion that was fabricated. This feels to be in a similar way. These emotions don't belong to you, but they make you feel a certain way, as Amun is pleading, striking you with all the force in his body, and you know that Apophis has taken autonomy away from yourself, and then suddenly, bam, like that, you're back at the lake with your palm in the venom, and you know something is wrong.
Oh. Okay. How far does the other side of the lake look?
Hard to tell.
It's you kind of described it as like a Great Lake, like it could go on for quite a while. Correct?
It might, yeah.
Um. mm, gosh. And I do not have any sigils on my web weaver of any sort.
Every sigil that was there has been replaced with one burning sigil of Apophis upon it.
Um. Can I make an arcana or insight check or nature check about whether this is a new realm that I'm in, a world between worlds, or some sort of illusion.
I will allow you to roll an insight check.
An 11.
It doesn't feel like the Duat, but it's definitely not the material plane the way that you knew it. It feels as though you inhabit your body but have been shunted. Like there's something keeping you from driver's seat almost. And it has greatly something to do with this venom that is flowing through your body and keeping you from utilizing these particular sigils in a way. You've always had a connection with the weave that Neith had created once you had gained the Kopesh, and it has allowed you to see strands and see connections between beings that either you have created or that have been created long ago by others. And right now, the only thing you feel is the Kopesh connecting to you, and that is it. You feel very much so utterly alone in this moment in time. You feel no presence of Horus, Osiris, or anyone other than yourself.
Hmm. I How much agency do I have over the web weaver in terms of I know that my attunement was one where I could summon it if it was out of my possession. Is can I test that to see if that's still the case?
You drop the web weaver for a second,
Yep.
step away,
Yep.
you call it back to your hand.
It comes back.
Yep.
I will leave the web weaver on the shore slightly above the lake. And with that, I will if possible, I would actually like to leave the web weaver in a state of just floating right above the shore, maybe about like 5 feet off the ground, poised in the direction of the lake, but just staying still, if I can do that.
You try to facsimile an enchantment to make it float. The web weaver unfortunately does not obey your desires. It cannot float in this particular area. You drop it for a second and it nearly submerges into the lake before you summon it back up.
I will. Oh, all right. I'm gonna plant it hilt first into the ground. Leave it
You,
there.
yeah, you plant it in the ground, and funnily enough, the ground itself seems to be made of rock, and you cleave down far enough to the point where, oh, this ground is more malleable than you thought. It's just a solid layer on top, and it's more like clay underneath.
Hmm. Interesting. I will leave it there, and I will attempt to walk into the lake.
All right. You plant the web weaver, consciously doing so, and you take your first steps into the lake. It burns, not as bad as you thought it would, but you feel it slowly eating away at your boots and your pants. And it burns all the same.
Am I taking damage?
No, not at this moment.
I will go chest deep.
You walk out more, and the venom itself, it only goes up to a little bit over the waist or so.
Okay.
But do you wish to soak yourself by laying down to go chest deep?
I would submerge myself to the extent to where I am chest deep, but still walking forward.
Okay. You begin the journey. Isaiah, as you start walking, you feel more and more like this is a situation that you will not be the same from. If there is an after this for you, you will always be this person and there will be no full recovery. You make your distance and eventually you come across some of these waiting figures. A number of them seem to be just regular residents of Jabaxi. They are forlorn, sunken eyed, emaciated. They have burns alongside the lower part of their body, and their hands and forearms that dip into the water itself seem to have been dyed a darker, burnt shade. A number of individuals seem to float with no lower bodies to be seen or had whatsoever, with other individuals trying to keep them afloat and surfaced. It very much so feels like and seems like these are victims of Apophis that are caught.
Hmm. I would like to. I would like to help with at least a couple of the bodies, start help carrying them to the other side of the lake and hopefully getting them out.
As you get closer, you get into the distance where your aura is active. You see a lot of their pain alleviate. And it's almost like they come to ever so slightly, whereas before they were rather resigned to fate and just ever so slightly resisting the full submersion. Your presence brings them almost a second wind and a new life. As you grab what looks to be a young Jabaxi teenager, looks to be nothing more than maybe a courier. His legs are gone, and he looks to you with not too much anticipation, but once you lay your hands upon him and lift him up, cradling his head, he begins to weep as you start walking him distantly in the direction that many individuals seem to be going. And slowly but surely, Isaiah, you see what looks to be distant, glowing red light far above where you are. And you wade and wade, and the water begins to rise and rise. And you feel as though this venom is burning you. It is starting to take its toll, nowhere near as fast as any of these individuals. Slowly but surely, it's taking what it wants from you. And then suddenly, you see something that you might not have imagined. And you see what looks to be a platform of stone, almost a plateau that has been carved into what looks to be a makeshift. The best way to describe it is a large floating house. And upon it look to be other victims. But more importantly, you see what looks to be other martial warriors, very similar to yourself.
They're on the platform of the floating house.
You see that, yes. Maybe a good half a mile away at this point in time, but you see what looks to be individuals with more than just the simple clothing on their back.
I will. At this point, I will cast protection from good and evil on myself and slightly submerge myself more as I make sure that this adolescent child is further out of the water as I keep walking forward.
You raise this kid up, pressing him far above your head. Your shoulders have been straining so much, but you find it within yourself to prove what a Magi should be. And as you do so, Isaiah, I would like you to give me an athletics check.
That's a 16.
16?
Yes.
There's
yes.
decent rise where you are basically just below neck level of this venom, and you started this journey with a decent crowd of people, and at this point in time there are maybe 5 to 8 individuals carrying other individuals who are struggling far more than you to get to this arc. Once you are seen by these sentries, you hear calls, and suddenly a rope of intestines is thrown in your direction in the form of a loop. You hear, "Grab it," from a voice that you do not see.
Do I recognize the voice? Probably not.
It was very quiet and fleeting, but you don't recognize the voice.
I would look towards the other 5 to 8 individuals that are around me, and I will wait for them all to grab on to the intestinal rope, and I will allow them to get the pull out of the lake as I keep walking. Because I don't know how many other sentries are on the other end, but pulling 10 plus individuals through water sounds very difficult. So I will just keep the protection from good and evil on myself as I keep walking forward, and hoping my aura helps a little bit for those that are on the rope.
You see a number of other individuals beginning to noose up ropes and toss them in, but a number of the couriers and farriers of these poor floating individuals have succumbed. At this point in time, there are only 2 individuals who have not been fully dissolved, carrying these poor, despondent beings towards this arc. And you have a choice to make. You either grab the rope, or you tie the rope to the individual that you are holding.
I'm going to tie the rope around the individual that I'm holding, fasten it. I'll make a sleight of hand check for tying the rope around the adolescent. That is dog shit. That is my third 3 as I attempt to fasten the rope around the adolescent child.
Hey man, most things material here are burning away. This kid is, he's missing most of his skin at this point in time, although he doesn't seem to be in pain. It's hard to tie intestines around a slick individual like this, but I'll say you do a decent enough job to the point where you can loop it around this kid and hopefully, if they don't jump in themselves, get him over there in a timely enough manner since you have kept him out of it long enough.
As soon as I finish my attempt with the intestinal rope, I would go to the other 2 individuals that haven't succumbed left yet, and I would give them both 10 points of healing with my lay on hands pool, and I will I'll have both of them have one arm slung over my shoulders, and I will start marching up through the lake with both of them, hoping that they can make it.
With your proximity becoming so close, at this point, most of the individuals who are moving at a snail's pace have almost accepted their end. And the only thing keeping them afloat or even in existence at this point is your presence and the application of your lay on hands. A number of ropes are in the distance. You grab them, you apply them. Just roll me another sleight of hand for the lot of them.
A 9.
A number of them have lost so much of their body, and their eyes are blank as if they've gone blind in an accident. They don't seem to respond to any type of stimuli that you present to them. They seem so gone and worn away by this place. Whereas you, at this point, feel your skin still burning to the point where you feel as if the first layer of your skin might be gone. You still have more, but these individuals don't have the blessings or the constitution that you possess. And Isaiah, you give them what seems to be a few more fleeting moments of this life and existence as they get pulled on board of this thing as one final rope comes towards you.
Can I make an insight check on the couriers and farriers? Like, what's up with the intestinal ropes? Like, are they actually trying to help people, or are they just like what's the play here? If I could surmise anything, as they're pulling other individuals out of this lake.
You look over and you see what looks to be the closest thing that can be displayed as a survivor in whatever hellscape you have found yourself in. They look to be of Jabaxi proper. Not all of them seem to be affiliated with any type of soldiering, but a number of them appear to be Aarakocra and a number of the non-human races for the most part. There's one dwarf. Interestingly enough, you see what looks to be a turtle, which is a race that is so rare in the world at large that this one partial individual himself seems to be the master of ropes themselves. And you see him essentially pulling these from a very disgustingly large purple shark-like being, fashioning them, pulling the intestines out, and just essentially working them as if he's farming any type of material he possibly can. They have what looks to be makeshift cartilage bones that have been shaped into weaponry, and a number of these individuals seem to be dressed in simply the scales and if not the skins of these particular sharks themselves. No clothing is to be seen at this point in time besides what looks to be the few makeshift plates and remaining armor pieces that have at this point in time been dyed red, like a pastel red that you can recollect being the similar color to the ground. And in the back of your head, you hear Amun's voice accusatorily say, "Release my tested youth." And then it's gone.
Where am I now?
You're pulled to shore or on board, and the burning has subsided for now. And you find yourself in the presence of individuals that, once you are close enough, you see the very similar look on the face of them as did the floating, disparaged individuals once they are in the presence of your aura, they seem almost to come back to themselves again. And you are greeted with smiles, very, very sad, distraught smiles, as your very presence has soothed a lot of their pain and worry, it appears. And interestingly enough, Isaiah, you feel part of yourself feel less discluded than you were before. You don't feel like you're alone anymore. As the closer you get to the turtle, the more and more you realize you're not the only paladin here.
I I would approach the turtle and set a hand on their shoulder, and I'll say, "Where are we?"
He looks at you. He doesn't have teeth, but he has a very, very serious, deep smile that is not beautiful by any means, but it is beautiful in the sense that it is the truest thing you have ever seen in your life. As he looks at you and speaks for what seems to be the first time in centuries, maybe. Oh, my boy. Shame on me. I have no food to greet this guest with, and all the water we had ran out years ago. My friend, I was hoping you could tell me where I was. What news have you of Dashi? Do you know of Queen Dashi?
Can I make a history check to see if I know who Queen Daji is?
Roll a history check.
An 8.
She has something to do with you remember, she's a higher up in Bayek, the southern part, more southern, southeastern part of Jubaxi. But you're not sure if it was leadership or militaristic. You weren't positive.
Okay.
But he looks at you and he begins to give you like a number of intestine ropes, and he adorns you with what looks to be a number of different makeshift outfits made from the shark skin. My friend, I have not had a conversation in a long time. My syntax might be lacking. You speak common. Oh, or is this Jabax? Or is it Elvish? I don't remember. I I remember flames. Yes. And I remember burning. And then I remember the ground shaking from a growl. And I found myself on a shore. I don't know how long ago. But I remember there were many with me, and everyone from those days are gone. I remember fighting and losing. My pants perished first. But I have not. I hope. You have pants, and he looks upon you with a jealous look in his eye.
I ponder a paladin being stuck here since the times of Queen Daji, and how this place kind of eats at oneself. And the longer it is, the worse it gets. How these individuals are only prolonging some sort of inevitability, but yet they've made it this far. There has to be a solution. There has to be a solution. I will look at him and I'll say, "What is your name?"
My name, what they called me. I think I lost it. When the third tide came, and I had to save the children, it washed away then. I remember Nephthys was the god I worshipped, and she was a dangerous god to seek tribute from. I remember traveling, being assailed with the jackals of the trader. They called me a traitor, and I laughed at them. But they don't burn like I do now. But I float, and they didn't. My shell, and he kind of, not squeamishly, but adjusts this large, multi-layered hide of shark upon his shell that covers its visage, as if he doesn't want you to see it. My shell hid me from the lake for so long, but I only lasted as long as the first hole didn't take. Now there are many holes. They said it wasn't fair that I could float. And then they said nothing at all. So, call me Float.
I look at him, his shell, his experience, and I'll rest a hand on the edge of his shell and I'll put in 10 additional lay on hands healing points into him. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to use one of my divine senses.
Oh, you divine sense.
Yes.
Isaiah, the moment you divine sense, you find yourself in a different place. You are walking. Your vision is sharper than it has ever been before, and you see no darkness for nearly an entire mile ahead of you as you are deep, deep beneath the Temple of Iset. In a quick flashing sequence, you see the events that partook the moment Apophis had broken the circle. You see Amun desperately trying to get into the circle and trying to pull you out, striking at you from behind, and then Amun being jolted back as the entire temple shook from Apophis's approach. You see your own figure standing up, turning around and looking him in the eye, and you see a look of recognition and fear in Amun's eyes as he asks who stands before him now. And without a second's delay, after a moment in time to conjugate a word in his mouth, you see Apophis has taken control of your body and says a word in primordial, run. As he takes one brutal step forward, cracking the ground that he is standing upon, and reaches out for Amun, and in just as fast enough fashion, Amun narrowly avoids his grip, pushes Apophis off to the side with wobbly legs, seemingly unable to fully control the body yet. He stumbles, but the ground gives out before you are able to, or not you, but you and Amun are to get out of the room. You both tumble and fall beneath the temple, where you see a fight. To call it a fight is not necessarily true, but more of a game of cat and mouse, as Amun seems to be accusatory, saying that you are trespassing, Shimmer Scale. My tested youth doesn't belong to you. He belongs to Jubaxi. And yet all of these pleas fall on deaf ears, as slowly but surely Amun is, piece by piece, strike by strike, worn down by the impossible strength granted to you by this primordial serpent, until you see the pivotal moment in time where your thumb is plunged into the sternum of Amun and your other fingers interlock his ribs and you grip him by his chest. And at that moment in time, you cast protection against good and evil, and his grip loosens, and Amun gets away. Leaking blood behind him, he escapes deeper and deeper into the temple, and Apophis, in his rage, finds himself enchanted by this temple for a moment in time, as it slowly transitions into the temple we know as being for Iset, and as many magical seals are very open and apparent. He sees the weave everywhere as potently as anyone would from his position and standing, as he sees seals upon the old temple of Set that has been buried from years and years ago. And you see, as the moment Apophis walks through the barrier seals the same way he did the silver circle, you feel the presence of Set reach out towards your shoulder, and the moment he makes contact with your shoulder, he recoils and retreats with fear in his heart. And Isaiah, you feel as if Apophis himself was caught off guard in this moment in time, where you could potentially reclaim autonomy. Roll me a charisma saving throw. It has to be very high.
Ah! Just lower it. Okay. All right.
We will in time, but it has to be a 28, which is possible.
It's possible.
It's possible.
It's a 23.
At this moment in time, where Apophis is caught off guard and distracted from his concentration, he feels your presence. And the shock and awe that happened a second ago turns back to anger and then humor, as if you would actually try to wrestle control from him. You give it your best shot, and you feel the Kopesh at the side of Apophis at this moment in time. He has not been using it, but you feel the presence of Neith. Try as she might, she has no power in comparison to one of her greatest children in her very, very ragged form that she's in now. And control is taken back as Apophis strides into this temple of Set, thinking that he'll do to it as he sees fit. But if the mouse is gonna run, why not run in here? And you feel the turtle put a likewise grip, float. He puts a hand on your shoulder and he gives you 10 points of lay on hands to ease your pain and distress. As while your magic flows into him, it does nothing to heal his shell or the many aged wounds upon him. He seems to be far past his original state at this moment in time, but you get the feeling now that Apophis is slowly eating away at who you are. Maybe not purposefully, maybe unconsciously. Regardless, your presence here will simply make him stronger, and you cannot allow such a thing to happen.
Can I make an Arcana check to figure out A, what the house is either made of, or B, just extrapolate some sort of meaning as to how it could be floating?
You look at the stone itself, and it seems to be made out of the stone that was on the shore. Now, this clay seems to be slowly deteriorating, but it seems to be far more resistant in whatever place the turtle and you reside. Almost as if your sheer presence itself within a short distance of you empowers it, almost as if it resembles beings empowered by your aura, allies. Whereas the ichor, venom, acid, water is the primordial essence of Apophis himself that is never ending and eats away, slowly in your case, quickly in the others of the mortals as you see these unable-bodied individuals try to recollect things from their past life. You see a number of them trying to strike up conversation and then seemingly lose track of thought, and a number of them seem to have forgotten their names already.
I will look over to Float. And I will look at him and he'll say, Float, to what extent are you able to assist me in potentially freeing for us from this dungeon of Apophis?
You see Float look over towards the other armed individuals that he has at his beck and call. There's a number of Aarakocra that are missing most of the feathering upon their wings and legs, of course. He looks over at you and gives you a grim smile almost, as if it's a silly joke to even think that we will escape. My friend, I wish I could tell you. There were others like me, other Magi. But we had lost them in our last journey. A number of them had decided to strike out, attach the ropes to whatever fixings we could create, holes in our raft, and swim towards. And he points off into the distance where some of these red lights seem to be. Those. To see what lies beyond. We made some distance, but then these creatures, and he regards the sharks, came forth, hungry for our flesh. Our Ba and Ha was taken from us. And slowly but surely, we lose everything, Isaiah. He looks up at you, and he realizes you have a name. How is this? I see you and your name. I see you are still you. You are different. You have to have the reason. You have the way we can get out. You have to. And he gets a little aggressive. He grabs your shoulders. You tell me, what do we do?
I look at Float and I would look up towards the red lights and I would say I think we may potentially need to take these lights out. I don't know how helpful it would be to try to take out these sharks. Like you said, it is not just one of which where we are consumed, but our essence is consumed, and I don't think we can afford much more in the way of loss on those fronts. And I would look towards the people, and I'll look back at him and I'll say, if we need to do this, want to do this, we're going to have to be very careful and very smart to not disturb the sharks.
I am still a good swimmer. I will guide my raft. And if something happens to me, you will take my place. You will save as many of these people as you can before you lose yourself.
I look with a sense of resolve that I believe if I was able to break through even the illusion of this jail, maybe not necessarily gain control, but at least see the other side, then there has to be a way out. And I believe that, and I stand by that. I wear that look on my face as I look towards the people. And I will say, everyone, you may not know me, and you may not think your chances are that hopeful. But understand this, and I'll look at Float, and I'll say, Float understands this place seemingly better than anyone and has a raft. While Float only knows himself as Float, I still know who I am. My name is Isaiah. But more importantly, I know who you all are. And you all are fighters. And with that, I will summon the web weaver from the other side of the lake.
Okay.
And I will catch it in my hand. And conveniently, I will grip it such that the sigil of Apophis that's on it will be covered because it looks very questionable and suspect. And I will look at them all and I will say, we will break free of this place. For I will lose myself before I yield. But I believe together, we won't have to lose any more. And with that, I will nod to Float, and I will say, take us to the raft.
You begin your journey. Isaiah, I would like you to give me a survival check with advantage, as Float will be helping you.
15.
15 is very good. You are going to have to roll me a d20. And upon that d20, you're going to decide whether or not high or low is bad. and that is going to dictate whether or not you have an encounter in this place, which very well could be very, very bad for you.
I'm going to say lower is bad because I refuse to lean into the fact that I've rolled so many natural threes this session and
Okay.
natural ones prior. It's out of my system. I'm done with it. I'm over it. And we're going to be better now.
All right.
And with that, I rolled a natural 18.
Mm. This is good. Isaiah, it becomes very close and apparent to you that all of these people, while you journey and you're spending time with short conversation with Float, as you take times paddling, breaking paddles, and eventually Float will adorn himself with numbers of ropes and begin to swim forward. While you give him your support, you may cast protection against good and evil upon him if you wish. There will be a time where you will come across one of these red lights. And it comes with a very sudden surge and a discomfort amongst the waters as they begin to take more of a rough demeanor. It starts to shake the ship as you go forward, and you begin to take on water. And almost of clockwork, a number of the very ready individuals who are able bodied and warrior like immediately get into the water and they begin to raise it up above, seemingly sacrificing themselves and their discomfort to keep the others afloat and above everyone else. As you get closer and closer, this red light that's almost like a star begins to take shape in the form of a giant red scarab. This red scarab bears a symbol of Kepri upon it.
History check / Arcana check. I would like to know, did Kepri's MySpace go inactive? And we've been waiting for a response, and this is potentially what's going on, is Apophis got a lick.
Roll me an Arcana check.
Ooh, 17.
17. Kepri is not one of the greater deities in the grand scheme, but the role that he provides is a very powerful one.
That's hate, by the way.
Perfect. As you know, Ra, his existence is bringing the sun from one side to the other. Simple but pivotal in the similar fashion that Kepri is. Kepri coincides with Ra greatly, as in the journey in Egyptian mythology. I will not go deep into that because it's not completely relevant here.
What's Egyptian mythology?
I don't know. Never heard of it. Definitely has nothing to do with incest either.
Oh, God. Hey! Different times.
Yeah, it was. It clearly was. The most important thing that Kepri is tied to is rebirth. And the moment that you get close enough to this floating, flying scarab, as you see many red distant lights that seem to be similar in nature, but far enough away to the point where you're not positive, this scarab brings itself down, and immediately you realize it is the size of probably uh, an adult dragon or so. Impossibly large
It's
in
pretty
its
large.
size.
It's pretty large.
It raises the water level, but the moment it happens, a number of the able-bodied individuals depart from the raft and the ark, and they board the scarab. And a number of others just don't find it within themselves to do so, almost as if there is an innate command or a knowledge that is so intrinsically deep within themselves, they know what it is and what it means to board the scarab, but choice needs to be made.
Is it a chemistry thing, or is it the scarab might be not as innocent as we would like to perceive it to be?
It seems as though the scarab itself does not give off any type of malicious aura or anything of the sort. Kepri is known to be very helpful, does not take a side in the war of Horus and Set, is tied to rebirth. And in rebirth, there is freedom from a past life. And it goes against many of the edicts that Anubis and Osiris represent as a passage into the afterlife. But some people are not ready to take that journey. And you see this scarab, blood red, not a color normally associated with him. But the moment you realize that he's on board and taking passengers away, you feel as though the blood that the scarab has covered itself in is not the blood of individuals or any particular mortal being, but the blood of Apophis himself.
Do I interpolate that as Kepri is corrupt, or Kepri is trying to fight Apophis from the inside?
Roll me an insight check.
Ooh, 9.
He, not he,
Mm.
but Kepri, like many deities, splits his focus and exists in multiple places at one time. Due to the acceptance of the afterlife and the passage of life and death itself, does not gain many prayers, possesses only enough power to exist where he needs to, and has no power to spare. This scarab seems to have burrowed itself into the essence of Apophis, as many of these have, and seeks to free some of the souls that lie within, to give them a second chance.
And so Kepri is a martyr.
Yes,
I would look towards the scarab and rest a hand on it, and I would think back to, way back when, and when I set my hand on the scarab, It's a hand that longs for something better and mourns the fact that I am able to understand. Uh, just the idea that sometimes it's for the best to lose oneself for the purpose of the greater good. And it pains me that this is what Kepri has been forced to, or has felt like they had to relegate themselves to. I will for what it's worth cast protection from good and evil on this scarab, and I will send it on its way in hopes that it gets these people to somewhere safe, somewhere better.
You see Float, and he almost in an unconscious command is taking the individuals who can no longer move themselves and places them upon the scarab as well, almost as if he's doing so autonomously and doesn't even realize he's doing it until it is done. And then he puts a foot on the scarab and pushes the raft away with you and him on it, and the remaining individuals that chose not to go. He looks at you almost as if he's waiting for you to make a decision to jump across or to stay here.
I look at him and I say, until it's done.
Then he smiles grimly, looks at you, and he starts the journey again. And he begins to go towards the next light that he can find as the scarab leaves off with a full force of individuals,
I
raining tears down upon all of you.
I can I gauge how far away the next light potentially may be?
Give me a perception check.
16.
Looks to be less far than your original journey when you had first come across the raft.
Okay. Then what's the raft made out of?
Still the clay, slowly giving away.
But malleable. Slightly malleable.
Malleable, yes.
I'm going to usher a lot of these individuals to kind of corral them towards the center of the raft, and to ensure that we're okay, I will be standing at the edge of the raft, and I will be carving with the tip of the web weaver runes into the raft itself, pulling distinctly from the runes that I remember when Amun put me in that protection spell, with abjuration magic and the like. Also pulling from the memories of the flashback, the premonition I had with the divine sense. And I will do this until I carve the runes all the way around the raft, encompassing everyone inside. And once the glyphs are created, I'll stand back towards the center and I'll say the incantation aloud. And I will cast Magic Circle onto the raft as we journey through this lake.
You cast Magic Circle, applying the silver that would be necessary to the circle and the runes itself, even though this spell itself gave out and did not serve its purpose. In the might of Apophis, this is, however, not under his own focus. And you feel as though these individuals are well protected here. That, however, will open up a prioritization of you if you are to be struck in this situation. And I will say, full stop, that a confrontation with damage that will happen to you here will have permanent repercussions to your physical body itself. Isaiah, you cast this circle, you trigger another moment in time in which you find yourself in your body but not in control as Apophis stares out into the desert. He sees the world not as blank darkness, but as a vibrancy of the many connections and weaves and magics throughout the entire desert, almost as if it's an ocean and civilization lays on the bed of it. And in the darkness of the night, he screams, using a combination of both of your voices into the darkness as a challenge to anything that may lay out there in his domain. And one yell answers him back. And you know in your heart of hearts, the only person who would dare challenge him without knowing who he even was is Ion. Give me another charisma saving throw.
Fuck! Raymond, Anthony, Roberto, Javier, Banderas Jones. That is a natural one.
No way. Oh. Isaiah?
I'm getting real close to lying, Ray. I'm getting close. I'm getting close.
I respect.
It's not about
I
the dice
respect-
anymore.
Yeah, I respect that you're keeping with it. You're telling the truth, and we have to go into a worst case scenario. We just have to. And this was the pickup from, the last Nat 1. And I initially thought that this should end the story right here, right now, with Isaiah's journey just never fully seeing the light of day. But there has also been a way in my mind that I thought of long ago that has gone untouched on how you still can carry on. In Egyptian mythology and the essence of life and death, your Ka and your Ha and your Ba and many other things in between are very pivotal. They hold your essence, and they exist. As long as they exist, you exist. Isaiah, you lose your body, the one that you have come to know. It was an unforeseen thing, and to this day, in safekeeping, something has been left over and kept from your eyes and your visions in a just, a possible situation. But we'll carry on with this. As Isaiah, you see Apophis from your own point of view. He goes to confront his challenger. That can only be one person. It is Ion. And the initial strike that hits his heart the moment he sees her in the lizard folk form that she has taken is that she is ugly as sin. Why would she take this form and just do such an atrocity to herself? She should just be herself. And Ion looks at you with confusion. She doesn't see only Isaiah. She sees something else deep inside of herself that she doesn't understand, but she knows at the same time. And then she goes back into her full serpentine form. And then Apophis's initial presumption and his initial opinion is immediately reversed. And she is very clearly the most beautiful thing he has ever seen in his life. And his life, he looks at her and he thinks, if he was able to enjoy her presence as a friend and close confidant, so should I. Isaiah, while you are in this realm of Apophis, the webweaver leaves your possession. You no longer have it.
God, so corny.
You feel Apophis not possess your body, as to say that he could be existing in such a particular mortal shell is not feasible for someone like him. A flash and threat from Amun, laughing at him, saying that once night falls, Ra will have a far easier time striking out against him, with his power spread so thin at this point in time. Apophis realizes there might be truth in this, even though he rebuffs it. He minimizes the amount of strength that he needs to contain the body, almost as if to make it work for a long term. Maybe not forever, but for a long term. Isaiah, distantly, in a hideout that Amun has taken from a local bandit that's very well positioned out in the desert, he has made allies and friends with two wizards that will become familiar in the main campaign that we're going to be introduced soon, and one frog-like buddy. You could say that he's a spitting image of Lazarus Leapshot, except very different. A blue grung of sorts.
God bless.
Upon his skin, you see the markings that were bearing upon Isaiah's right hand from the bone of the Archfey that sent him back in time. The two wizard-like elves, they wear masks of birds upon themselves, not similar to the ones that is associated with the local Wizards Guild. They look over a number of manuscripts as Amun pours in, showering blood upon his hideout and them. The Grung goes to his help. One elf has long silver hair and is looking upon a severed left hand. The very left hand that once belonged to you twitches
Shit.
ever so slightly.
God damn it! What's going on? Oh god, okay.
And that ends it. Right there.
Really?
Yep. We'll end it right
Oh.
there for now. For now.
I need a nat 20, man. At some point. At some point. I need a nat 20.
I know.
I feel like I'm doing a pristine, top shelf. We're not talking Aldi here. We're talking about your fucking Lunds and Byerly's level of like role playing, right? And then you ask me to do the most basic fucking shit, like tie a rope, and it's a 3, or it's a 1, or it's a 4. I'm like, bro. The highest number was the natural 18 for the water, so I avoided some sharks. That's awesome. And then on one of my other checks, was it a history check? Arcana check? It was a 17. It was a 17 for the Arcana check. Awesome. Cool. Great. Everything else? Dog shit. Oh, man. At, like, the worst time. Like, this is the worst time. It's like, what do you even... I don't even know how to describe it. It's like getting a flat tire in the middle of nowhere. It's like, this is not where this is supposed to happen. Like, of all of my places. Do this in the city, but not right now. And I'm just shitting the bed right now. I am...
It's cruel. It is cruel.
I don't want to speak what I'm saying, because if it actually happens, then I'll say it. But right now, I will keep it to myself so that it doesn't plant a seed in your mind and you get any funny ideas to act on it. So we'll just leave it at that, but I'll write it down so I know that I thought the thought anyways.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so while I'm writing this down, Ray, tell me, what was your favorite part of the episode?
The end. Because it's both incredibly upsetting, but damn, like, I've always wondered what it would be like for, like, what if it's like really late game and the campaign just goes so badly, there's no way to possibly, like, keep the stakes up, because I could easily just be like, you know what, Apophis just decides, he'll give it back. And, you can just keep continuing on. No, there's no stakes in that. It's not, it doesn't have impact. It makes me just look like a bitch.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
refuse to do that.
Well,
Because,
I've already still shared that sentiment, but yeah.
I mean,
you're
yeah,
right.
that's fine. That's fine. But I will hold, with the very limited amount of ego and pride that I will ever give myself, I will absolutely not step back from saying that, yeah, I don't want this to happen, but it's going to have to happen, and I will hold my guns to it no matter what. You lost the Web Weaver. That's gone. This is going to turn into a situation where, like, you were coming in full swing. It is different now, and you will be back. You will not be able to... You're not going to have things that you had before. You will not get them back. Your allies will never see you the same. Amun will not be the same. And we're going to have to decide together what is going to happen. And my initial thought was going to be like, geez, I can't imagine all the fun one-shots we could potentially do, like, and see what could happen. Like, because my initial idea was like, oh, I'll just have a time skip and have Isaiah be like, oh, I'm good now. And then we were going to have a one-shot to see how much Isaiah, with Apophis in control, fucked up Chiraku and Jabaxi at large. Just everything.
Yeah, that would be not awesome. Oh my gosh. Oh man, what was the one shot with the first one shot with Puzz and all of the evil characters?
Oh, the Dark Inheritance.
Oh my gosh, Dark Inheritance killed the Isaiah.
My idea was, yeah, they all just make characters that are probably gonna die or might not die, and have them go up and try to stop Apophisia.
Oh, I don't even like that you said that. I don't
I
like
know,
that.
I know.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
that's not okay. Yeah, you're right. Actions should have consequences.
I want them to have impact, I want it to mean something so that that this was just a side thing and it fucked up. It went down. Down. Ah.
Yeah, it was I don't even really know how to describe it. Like, it's just like it's we're back at the hags again, where something is so modest meaning and so clearly not fully thought through in terms of how could this bounce back in my face that I hate the predicament that I'm in, but I have no one to blame but myself. So I understand all of the angles of this. So blame myself for the actions component, not necessarily blame myself for the dice rolling component. You never, like you said, you never really anticipate that you're going to roll perfectly or that you're going to roll completely like bad dog shit. So you should always anticipate that your rolls are predicated on like a 50-50 or a 10 on average. So if you're only rolling 10s, can you reliably say that you'll get through this just fine? And most of the time, I guess, or recently, I guess, my judgment's wrong. So going to what I liked about this session was I like the environment. I like the in-between worlds component. It was both very puzzle-like, but also it gave me a little bit of like a belly of the beast type vibe. Like maybe I'm inside of Apophis. Like maybe like
That was the effect I was going for. Like, it symbolizes his stomach of all the people he's eaten.
Yeah, and
without it being it.
And my plan was to fuck up this metaphorical stomach because I was like, let me see if I can make this motherfucker squirm. Even though obviously I would just be a tickle, but so like the original plan was, don't worry guys, I got your back. I would jump out of the house, go into the fucking lake, burn a 3rd level smite, have Spirit Shroud on me, and say, you may be all-consuming God of Darkness, but I got radiant damage, and I'm homies with the God of the Underworld. So let's see how you like fucking 40 points of like radiant damage right now.
Fair enough.
Straight into the lake. And then I thought, that doesn't free float in everyone else. And even if I rolled well on the charisma saving throw to regain my body, I don't even know if I would want to do that because I think Isaiah is so...
Fuck.
his oath runs so deep that it breaches delusion, where he would almost allow Apophis to keep the body so that he could stay there and save the people to the best of his ability.
Yeah, I that like and that's what I love about paladins, especially one particular paladin in the Critical Role universe who was DM'd by Brendan Lee Mulligan, one
Xerxes?
Xerxes who was
Yeah.
quite literally toxically positive to his great detriment, and I love that because it's so true to who he is, but it's so bad for the world at large. But
Yeah.
it's absolutely the truth of his character.
It is like the self manipulation for the purpose of I am deathly afraid of breaking my oath, but you get so comfortable in that fear that the fear manifests as just true belief. Like, I cannot leave these people. Why would I do that? And I think it's fun, and it has to be fun on a DM's perspective to understand that when DMing for a paladin, they are going to, some extent be short-sighted, or when they make a decision that like tries to sift through the gray but ultimately goes against the oath despite the alignment, of the choice, long term with how it nets out. You could just throw it in their face and be like, okay, you can make the choice that's ultimately good, but guess what? Now you're an oath breaker. You have consequences. And
Yeah.
it's an interesting place to be in, which is why I love it and I hate it. Let's see, other things that I like. Turtles. I like turtles. And
They're great.
so thank you for giving me Float. I hate that he was an amnesiac. That sucks. And I was going to call it out, and I didn't, but I was going to call out, I'm like, are you trying to give me a Master Oogway looking motherfucker? Because I was excited for that. So, did that. And let's see, what else? I like the hand thing and the grung thing. It is very interesting. It is very interesting. Part of me thinks part of me is like, I've rolled so bad, I think I've like earned the fucking thing to end because I have just, even though it's not my fault, it's just like, how do you ignore natural ones in the face of an Apophis confrontation? Like, it's it's I said that the best thing that I like about this campaign is that it gives me all the feelings related to Percy Jackson and all of that. But Percy Jackson was never rolling at ones. He just figured out either a clever way or he had the help of his friends or whatever the case may be. So it never really, I guess maybe I should reread the books, but it never felt like as fucking grim as this shit. And I also was thinking about Percy Jackson during this episode when I was walking through the lake and I felt the burning, and I'm like, is Ray trying to set up like this as my
River Styx?
My River of Styx moment where I'm going to be burnt and reborn, and maybe not necessarily, oh, you're invulnerable now, like here's your 25 AC or something like that. Like, no. But something would have happened of it. So I had that in the back of my mind, but I was like, this is too grim and kind of unceremonious to really be that in the way of like how things are going about. But yeah, going back to like how bad I've rolled, I felt like this shit should have wrapped up. I appreciate, but almost feel like you give me so much like pity in the way of like, I'm like, is this guy is like a master contortionist? The way that he can figure out a way of Isaiah is somehow keeping alive. I feel bad for Tenguth because Tenguth's just, I looked at the map and he's fucking dead, and we look at Isaiah and he's like, well, you still have an arm out there. And it's like, oh,
you had a hand. Oh man. I
Yeah.
held on to that hand in my mind for a long time. I'm like, maybe this will be important. It might be important. There's another ounce of essence out there that someone has that is not good, but you can't come back through that. I'm afraid to say.
That was one time that I nutted. You can't do that.
Yep. Yeah. The accidental in Romy's Hill. Oh, fuck.
Isaiah,
Fuck.
you are reborn in a sock, and you look like the crustiest fucking mummy. It was like, oh, just kill me
I
now.
will. Yeah. That sucks, man.
No, also another thing that I was trying to figure out was to what extent for whatever reason the beginning of the episode I thought you were trying to mirror the beginning of Isaiah's story, with the recapturing the feelings of isolation, loneliness, the death march walk forward, confronted by the body of water. And I'm like, earnestly, for about 2 minutes, my plan was to, if Ray wants to set this up to be uh, a mirror of what has happened, then I will facilitate that dream to come true because I would like to see what happens. And I was going to plant the Kopesh in the dirt and land face forward into it and stab myself to see what would happen.
Oh, jeez. I would not have expected that. I was not planning on that. I think that was just coincidental for the most part.
Yeah.
But in hindsight now, I see why you would think that. I'm like, oh yeah, no, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because that was very similar.
But that's another one of those things where it's like, so you're gonna kill yourself when you're already kind of in this peril situation? Do you really think you're gonna kill yourself to live? That's not how this works, buddy.
I did have
didn't do that.
plans. I did have plans just in case you did try to kill yourself. I did have something in play. I don't think I want to tell you what it is, but if you do want to know, I will tell you. But I feel like once again we have another weird fucking thing going on, and I know this whole like I had so many things, like I had dialogue written down for what Amun was gonna say, just in case you burnt all your divine senses and used all your spells to, do everything to get back inside of your body. But like God, we're just doing more and more shit now, but we're definitely going to be in the case where if you want, we can re-roll your stats because your body that you're coming into is completely different now besides your fucking left hand. And I feel like, the domination of the left hand is probably not going to dictate what your stats are going to look like.
I think
I definitely have some things planned and, planned from before that still are relevant. And I guess the main reason why we are still doing this to this day is because there absolutely has to be closure for your character and characters down the line. And now I have more things I have to write about because now that guy's out there. So
just to clear it up, I no longer have my body.
Yeah. So you could say I originally had it planned of the joke of Amun saying like, "Well, it's not like he's gonna possess your body," and then basically have it be a situation where like he's possessing your body but not possessing your body. He has stamped out your previous consciousness inside of his mind or inside of the being that he exists, and whatever existed before you were taken will be your memories now. So you're going to forget about Float. That's gone.
So, and this may be going too far into the future. Maybe you did think of this, but he can't do that for an extended period of time because
No.
Ra is gonna come to beat the fucking brakes off of him. At some
That is
point,
correct.
Day has to come. So
That is absolutely correct.
So I'm just gonna be the meat shield in between this clusterfuck?
I have things in play from before, actually. The moment you had taken Amun from the Ark, things changed altogether. and I shouldn't say you took Amun. Amun decided, yeah, I'm coming with you because I want to, and he abandoned his duties. That being said, that's a little spoiler territory.
Yeah, yeah.
This
I'm not trying to spill the beans. I'm just trying to understand.
this is a new step that he has Apophis has never even tested before. He is in the material realm in Salia, which he has never been in. And he has, at this point in time, laid eyes upon Ion in her true form. And I have an idea of what can happen. And at this point in time, Joy and Malice have no idea. You don't know if Amun shared any information with anyone at this point in time. And he has been working with these two wizards and a little younger, or actually older looking version of Lazarus Leapshot, a blue grung of sorts, that bears in mind these tattoos or markings of time magic upon his person. The same ones that were on you, that are no longer on you, and are on whatever he is now. So, I would love for you.
I can't clean up
to-
any of my messes. I cannot clean up any of my messes. I just create
That's-
more and keep going forward.
You know,
and that
it's
is bad on a player perspective.
it's so awesome. I'm envious of you, honestly, partially, because it's like, when I wrote my fucking world and I wrote my main characters of Colette, the legendary heroes. This is how I imagine it would have been like for her in particular. It'd be like, this is fucking terrible. Like, people are lauding me as a hero and I have accomplished nothing. I have done nothing. I am so angry. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure there's some of them who were like that, and you're living it right now. Like, you have some good, you get some stuff done, you make changes, and then this happens. And it's like, fuck.
Next
So
phone call, I'm calling Ra. Next one, I'm calling him.
Yeah. And I want you to brainstorm on what you want to do with your eventual new form. Think about it for as long as you want, and the next session can be just as soon as possible. And I remembered saying fuck when you were explaining something earlier, and I remember that this is supposed to be the horny episode. So at the very tail end of you bringing up the scarab and such, you see Apophis's big old large cock and balls just hanging out of the, it's hanging out of the venom just there, and you cannot bring yourself to get close to it.
God damn it.
You just can't.
God damn it.
It's just there,
Hey,
it's there.
Speaking of which, you did not tell me what I got for that Nat 1 2 episodes ago.
It was going to be for your journey, in which case,
Oh, that's Apophis's Nat 1 now.
it's not yours anymore. Yeah, it's
Woo!
not your problem.
That's what I'm talking about, baby!
You quite literally deflected that one. It has nothing to do with you anymore.
See that, guys? That's what we call the long game.
Dude, imagine filing for bankruptcy in D&D.
I hope the IRS is after him. I hope I hope he is, the ever consumer, but he cannot outconsume greed. And I hope the tax man comes for him.
There are coin counters in my world. They have not come up, but I'll save them. They might come for him. They might.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I think there might have to be off recording discussions about what we're gonna want to happen to happen next. And I'm very interested to have those, but I want to say, since this is a soft ending of sorts, I want to say thank you for the journey. Lots of gratitude that in my heart. There's about like a 23% portion of my heart that says fuck you. And
I need to pump those numbers up.
and ultimately this has been a fun, crazy, wild ride. It, like I said, the Percy Jackson experience that I want. It's just that at some point I actually have to like just start being Percy Jackson, and like actually being good and like doing good and like, but like in a way that like doesn't create a clusterfuck of a mess in the wake of good. Um, so yeah, we will have discussions, but until then. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to these beautiful people before we depart?
I'm sorry you guys are part of this journey. I really am. It's my bad. It's my bad. You know, Lisa, Pearl, Austin, anyone who's even listening right now, probably Lisa.
Yeah.
Uh, it's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough. Slowly but surely, I'm working on presentation, trying to make things more spicy and more entertaining. I still don't see this as like a podcast necessarily or like anything like that, but in future iterations, it absolutely can be. We'll both work on more presentation as time comes. We can. I feel like through Patrick, I can always run more and more adventures in Jabaxi or not necessarily in Jabaxi, maybe other places even as well. I'm cool with that. I could run it forever, but I'm hoping that Isaiah's journey will come to an end soon. At least in our story, in our sessions, and maybe he can have a happy ending, and maybe he can die bloody and cold again. But we'll see.
Born to die, forced to live. And
Fuck.
until then, you guys have a good one. Thank you. And we'll see you in the we'll see you on the other side.
Later than you think.
Goodbye.